Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Mentorship Monday. I am Desi Abeda, your high performance mentor and registered dietitian. You know, this past week has been really great. So shout out to all you listeners out there. A lot of you tagged me in the last Mentorship Monday video, giving me your 1 to 2 habits. So for those that are just coming on right now, make sure you take some time, go back 2 episodes ago. I think we're at 39 right now. So go back to episode 37 when we did our first Mentorship Monday. And if you haven't had the chance yet, go back to episode 38 where we had our first hero's journey. And so for those that missed it, let me give you a little bit of an excerpt. It was one of my really great friends, Teresa Lau. She is amongst probably the 1% in Major League Baseball, not only just being a female, but being a female medical team type of person. And so she's like all the initials behind her. So she's a strength coach. She is a physical therapist, an athletic trainer. And so we really dove into not only her hero's journey, but the types of habits that she really threw herself into over the past 2 years to get to a point where now she's in the show. She's in the major leagues. So that was a really great story. So for those who have missed the last 2 episodes, please go back, take some time to do it. Again, with these Mentorship Monday videos, or rather these episodes, and you can catch these on YouTube for those who are a little bit more on the YouTube front. They're going to be about 10 to 11 minutes, really just diving into habits that can help you. And as your mentor, it's part of our Mentorship Monday. So if you have not listened to that episode 37, please go back, do yourself that favor, because we talked about cascading habits. So let's go ahead and piggyback on what we talked about last time. So this last week, we talked about each and every week, it is okay for us to take extreme ownership around the type of bandwidth that we have each week. So if we're able to dedicate an hour to our bodies, so that could be taking some time to eat, that could be strength training, that could be going for a walk. We're going to know week to week the type of bandwidth that we have. And when we have these crazy weeks, really what the emphasis is about progress, because progress is not always linear. It's sometimes going to be all over the place. So your initial reaction to taking some ownership behind this is first to be realistic about the amount of time that you have. And so this last week, I talked about creating cascading habits. So stepping into 1 or 2 habits that you know are high reward and that you know are going to help you to cascade into different things. And so for me, I talked about meditation and going for my walk, because if I do that, it's going to cascade into me strength training. And if I do that, I'm going to want to have a nourishing breakfast. And then from that point on, it's game time. I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to take care of my mind. And I'm really going to crush everything that I need to during that day. So I want to address one really big thing that I tend to find as I have my own coaching practice with my own high performers. The biggest thing that I tend to find is this big concept of really getting stuck with habits. And I always tell them too, like, hey, if you want to change your habits, you have to focus on changing your identity. Let that sink in real quick. So if you want to change something about yourself, instead of looking at all the reasons why you can't do it, take a look at what your current identity is right now. Okay. And so if you want to change your habits, you have to focus on really changing your identity for who you are. I mean, how many of us have gotten stuck in, and I heard this from Mel Robbins, and it totally stuck with me. And I was like, oh my God, this happens all the time. Whether or not I am teaching my high performers, or even just when I was working with professional athletes, or even just working at a community health center, I found that identity was such a huge thing. And how many of us, raise your hands, especially those listening, and really those who are going to watch this on YouTube and also on IGTV, how many of us get stuck with that past conditioning where it's a little bit of a cop-out, where you're just like, I'm lazy? I got to tell you, anytime that I jump on the phone with any of you or talk to any of you, I am not going to let you get by with that. Like, listen, you are not lazy. You have a habit of being lazy. Okay. So there's a difference, especially when we look at mental health therapy. When I first started working with eating disorders, one of the biggest things that I found is, like, we want to help them to understand that it's the behavior that is impacting their life. It's not who they are as a person. Because how many of us have gotten stuck into that shame cycle? And so for those that don't know the differences between shame and guilt, I'm a big Brené Brown fan. For those who have been listening for quite some time now, that's not news to you. So Brené Brown, who is a shame researcher, talks about the differences between guilt and shame. So guilt is an action of you doing something that goes against your own individual values, right? And so when we go from there, like, I did a bad thing, there's a difference between I did a bad thing and then I am something bad. So shame is that area that keeps people stuck. It's a huge reason why we have a lot of behavioral addiction. It's a huge reason why we have a lot of substance addiction. There's just a lot that goes into someone who grounds themselves in shame talk. This right here is a very good example. So instead of saying I am lazy, try to separate yourself from that and just look at it from a habit standpoint, or look at it from a behavior standpoint. I have a habit of being lazy. Because what you're able to do there is separate yourself so that you can actually take a look and take that bird's eye view of your behavior. And with a lot of us, as we take that bird's eye view, it's very often that you're going to come to a place where it's like, if you're navigating a behavior, right? If you're living a sedentary lifestyle, if you are really unfulfilled at work and you're kind of just going through the motions, if you're someone who's struggling with alcohol, drugs, if you're someone who is binge eating at night, if you're someone who is just not living up to their fullest potential, it is so hard to separate yourself from what is going on in your life, because there isn't a whole lot of mindfulness that's being brought into the mix. And so as you take that bird's eye view, we want to encourage you to get to a point where you are seeing this as, okay, this is a habit of doing something. Because the key to building long-lasting habits is focusing on what you want to achieve first, and then grounding yourself in that identity. One of the biggest things that I found, I was just on a really great coaching call with one of our high performers. It was probably like three months ago. We were really diving into his habits. And what I was asking him to do was to make sure that he was taking his recovery nutrition more seriously, because he was starting to become more active. And it's really hard when you try to help someone, because we come from past conditioning. You know, those who have dieted on every diet, we come from past conditioning of like, well, I need to move more and eat less. That's how I change my body. Well, the more science that comes out and the more that we understand people, it's not a copy and paste type of thing. And so what I was asking him to do is like, hey, I really need you to take the recovery nutrition seriously. And as a performance dietitian, it's something that I'm never going to let go. Right. And he had said to me, he's like, you know, Des, like, I don't know if I'm that active. I think that's just like what's really hard. And so over the past 3 months, we've been really diving into this identity work of helping him. And this is where I want our listeners and our viewers on YouTube to really get behind this. Your biggest asset is going to be what you envision in your mind first, and then it's the application. Okay. And so 3 months down the line, you know, him and I were just joking on a coaching call the other day where he was like, hey, like I had, you know, any of us who've ever done insurance, like you take the questionnaire, you get the labs, and they just want to see like if you're a good fit to insure, because if you're not taking care of yourself, it's very likely that you're going to have a pretty damn high premium or deductible. Right. And so in his case, he was actually getting paid. He was actually getting paid for all the health that he's put into his body. And it was really cool to hear him say, like, they asked like, hey, are you a really active person at least 3 days a week? And we joked, and he was like, it's 3 days a week when I'm on an off week, because he's at a point where his habits have formed and his habits have automated. So now he has this new identity of, hey, I don't miss days to take care of my body, whether it's mobility, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's exercise, getting my steps in. And so we've been able to habit build over this time. And I tell you this story because I just want you to get into the mindset of creating a new identity for yourself. Because if you have an identity right now that is motivated by negativity, right? The bigger question or the bigger message that we're constantly telling ourselves is that, like, I'm not enough. I can't do this. I quit on myself. So as we take that bird's eye view that I talked about earlier, I really want to push you to understand that belief matters. And if I'm asking you to change your habits, it's more so that I'm asking you to change your identity so that you are someone who is emphasizing sleep hygiene. You are someone who does not miss days in the gym because you know how great it feels to feel confident, to push that weight that you didn't know that you could do, to push your mindset past a place where, you know what, it's a good reminder to remind yourself that you're not made of glass and you can do hard things. You know, I'm a father to a 5-year-old, and I find myself saying that a lot to her. And I'm really just reminding myself too, like, hey, you can do hard things. And so if I'm pushing you to change your identity, then I'm pushing you to see yourself being successful with navigating more fulfillment in what you're doing in your job and allowing your habits to form your identity. So if you're someone who is, again, emphasizing your sleep hygiene, getting the amount of outside time that you get, really taking care of your body, prioritizing recovery, making sure that you understand nutrition, you understand what your body needs, I'm asking you to change your identity. And if you're someone who does not, this is where mentorship needs to happen. So if you're someone who is completely lost, I have something in the outro that I just want to just pass along to you, because we have a really great Facebook group that I want you to join if you are not already a member. And on top of that, if you find yourself coming across needing a mentor, this is why I'm here. Okay. And so for those who are listening right now, I want you to do a couple things, right? Because a lot of people get lost in all of the education that people are constantly receiving. But the high performers, right? The people that are successful in what they do are able to apply that knowledge. All right. So what I want you to do with this episode is I want you to take a screenshot. I want you to tag me, right? It can be on IG, Facebook, Twitter, like whatever, at Desi Abeyta. Let me know which belief systems you want to get rid of. Okay. So what I want this to sound like, your new identity is, say like, okay, new identity is X, Y, and Z. So that might sound like my new identity is I am someone who is a high performer that works out 4 days out of the week. I am someone that's a high performer that does not skip lunches because I'm too busy. So that's where we start to really formulate your identity so that it better fits the type of outcome that you desire in your life. All right. So I hope this resonates with you all. Again, take this time, screenshot this episode. Let me know what your new identity is, or one that you've already been practicing and being successful with. And so the more engagement that we have with this community, the more that we can start reminding each other that we are high performers, and that all that we need to do is to take that bird's eye view that I talked about earlier and take some ownership behind the behaviors that no longer fit the outcome that we desire. All right. I hope you all enjoy. Happy Monday, y'all. Peace.